Hi there, welcome to this episode of Inspired Aspirations. My name is Gretchen Ehrlichman, and I am joined today by Thomas Conroy. And we will be talking today about how creation helps us to know things about God and how creation can help us to journey in the spiritual life. I think that this is a very appropriate time to be talking about this particular topic because we are really coming right into the beginnings of fall where creation is changing and really the colors and the beauty of the autumn says something so wonderful about God. And we can use that beauty to help us to turn our minds in recollection. So what do you think, Thomas?
Yeah, it's certainly, especially as we get closer to more holiday months and the seasons start changing, you get to see the beauty of the earth, especially the forest as the colors change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I guess my kind of thoughts about how creation can help us to kind of journey in the spiritual life and to journey closer to Christ is I do think that in a very particular way, creation, each thing in creation says something very particular about God. Like we have so many different things around us. We have, from the smallest tiny little bug that we can hardly even see to like the greatest, trees and things like that. We learn little things about like how wonderful God really is. And kind of how awesome God really is. I mean, if you ever go to like the top of a mountain and kind of just like behold like everything below you, you're
Hmm.
kind of just struck with this kind of experience of the sublime, like something that's
Yeah,
just so great and like beyond you. And like that's kind of the way in which we can learn something about God's greatness because I mean, human um, in our human capacity, we are not able to comprehend God. So we have to use the things of our senses, use the things around us to continually try and learn about God. And I think we do that particularly through creation. And I think that this manifests itself in a particular way in the Psalms, because in the Psalms, the psalmist always really uses a lot of imagery from creation, from the way the sun shines and from the way that the rain falls and from the way that the waters are, that we learn something about the grandeur of God. And it's because we are able to behold those things and then absorb them through our senses and then come to a knowledge of, you know, those wonderful and amazing kind of phenomenons of nature that can only be explained through the mercy and the grace and the greatness of God, of a supreme being.
yeah, and you're right. It's like, for example, in some of the Psalms, like often in comparison to God's eternity, they might speak of mountains. God is older than the mountains, as well as in Psalm, I believe 8 is the psalmist is he sees the heavens arranged, he sees how God is, and he just like, who am I? What is mortal man in
Yeah.
your sight? And really, that sense of it's really a sense of wonder
Mm-hmm.
about the God's creation, and wonder does lead to maybe a bit of the contemplation of the truth. And you see, especially in Sirach, it says, "More than this, we need not add. Let the last word be His all in all." And as the divine author, you can see bits of His words. Like in one of my favorite poems is, "The thunder and the singing of the birds are but His voice, and rocks are His written words." And these various perfections are obvious. And that's something for me is, as I worked in a scout ranch in New Mexico called Philmont. It's one of my favorite places in the country, absolutely beautiful. And there are points in times where you would just like walk into a valley and you'd see like this beautiful lake. You'd see the trees way perfectly, like the sun would be coming in, and it just hit you and be like, I just need to stop here and look at this for like a second. And it really had a powerful effect on people. There are places like that which hold your heart. Realize that there are places where God's glory is made manifest in this particular instance. And again, like that comes out, that's part of, I think, people have a natural kind of longing for nature, is because there's something really wholesome about it that eventually leads to Him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I think, regardless of how much time we've actually each spent in nature, I'm sure like everyone has had that moment of like just beholding like just like wow, like it just compels you to want to like pray and thank God for that moment. As you said, like you stop and you're just like, beholding this beauty. I mean, even if it's just as simple as like after the rain, like seeing a rainbow, right? It's always like such a special thing. You're like, wow, like that is just so beautiful. And like only nature could create something, so beautiful. Like it's not by our hands, it's by like the hands of God that this thing has come to to grace us.
Yeah. And it's it's certainly something in the in the moment you're aware of as well, and also as particularly, so I used to, one of the things to do is particularly mountains for
Mm-hmm.
me were a big place where you go up and you see your view, and you'd also see your particular perspective in God, in that we're very, very tiny in the grand scheme of things,
Mm-hmm.
in the entire kind of cosmos of a creation. And ultimately, like, you could end up, if you wouldn't have faith, you'd just be like this, right? Like, I'm kind of meaningless here. But you believe that at the end of the day, that God, in some ways, it sense like, in some real senses, he made the heavens the way so that we could, when we walked out of our houses, we looked up, we see his glory and give thanks to him. Like, in some sense, a real sense, like, he did all of that, particularly for us, because if you believe humans, and particularly the incarnation, is the center of his creation, for his glory, and for us to see him and do that. And I wouldn't say it's often harder to do that if you're always in a setting of very artificiality,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
in
agree.
terms of, I got nothing against cities, but it can be harder if all you see is concrete,
Yeah.
to really be able to see something as obvious as, oh, this is something beautiful, something really good and beautiful and true that you can encounter,
Mm-hmm.
and that leads to him.
Yeah. And I think like because like there's so many things in nature that like are so striking, it really calls the person to recollect, right? It's like you can't appreciate nature, you can't kind of enter into that beauty like if you're just running around and you're being fast and you're being loud, and like it kind of just like fosters like this kind of ability to be silent and to be
Mm.
in solitude for a minute, and it fosters just kind of an environment of contemplation, of the recollection of
Yeah.
God's goodness, in a way that other things do not. um,
It's certainly, it might be why some, like, the monasteries are often in the middle of a great beauty. Like, I go down to, say, one place in Virginia, that you go off, you be able to see the mountains, this old beautiful house by the river or something like that, and you be able to see, like, it moves you to, and it draws people as well.
mm-hmm.
Even people who aren't particularly aware of the faith, they're aware that there's something there,
Mm-hmm.
something there that the monastery was built for, and it kind of is reflected in the creation around it, of, like you said, of contemplation and recollection.
Yeah.
And one of the things is, in going on film is one of the things you would encourage people, don't look at your phone while you're out
Mm-hmm.
in the middle of this
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
It's, you have a rare opportunity to really detach for a moment and just kind of let yourself be. And I mean, I had we would end up working for like 9 days at a time, or we wouldn't really have access to anything, but you'd be out there in the middle of nowhere, like, and miss the stuff, and there'd be a rhythm to it that you get involved with, that, like, it said it was for recollection, if you allowed yourself to be drawn into it.
Yeah. Yeah, and what you said about the monasteries, like when I was in my aspirancy at the Monastery of Our Lady of Grace, there's the little cloister garden where, in order for me to walk from the novitiate to the chapel in the morning, I would choose to walk outside through the like little garden as opposed to like on the inside. And I would always make sure I had like a few extra minutes because I wanted to walk really slow, and you could see the dew like on the
Uh,
plants, and like the morning glories were coming out, and it was just like it was a very kind of like mystical experience of God, like being in nature that way, like
yeah.
realizing like I am surrounded by God because he has placed me in the beauty of his creation.
Hmm.
Um, and it was just a beautiful way to like start the day, and then realize like you could see like as the day kept going, I would continue to go, like when I was going from novitiate into the chapel, I would walk outside, and you'd see the morning glories would kind of go down at the afternoon when the sun came back up, but you would see the nature kind of responding to the rhythm of life, in a way that was just like, not only was nature kind of responding to this rhythm, but I felt like very much in solidarity with it as I was going through the rhythm of praying the office
Yeah.
on the hours, and it was
Yeah.
really beautiful.
Yeah. It's something, it's like as we go in more modern, we kind of been more shifted from the rhythms of nature, but often if you lived in older time, it would have been more apparent like this. You would have lived to the rhythm of the harvest and this seasonality of what food you would be eating would be very much more tied in. Or in our particular point, we're a bit more independent of that particular environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're just about out of time, but I think that that was really good. We could say so much more about this, but I guess for our listeners, just next time you go outside and kind of encounter nature, just think about how I think all of those things help to reveal the goodness of God. And I think, I hope that that kind of helps to foster um, a spirit of recollection and kind of contemplation of the greatness of God that is shown manifest in creation. So, yeah, well, God bless you. Thank you for listening. If you found this exciting or edifying in any way, please feel free to share it on social media, share it with your friends, family, anyone who you think might enjoy it. We can be found on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and different social media sites. And we hope that you will continue to join us as we continue this project. So, as we leave you, know that you are in our prayers. Please pray for us. And don't forget to
Think Catholic, speak Catholic, be Catholic.
All right, we'll see you next time. God bless.